You're listening to the Youth for Life podcast with Michelle Bauman, Director of Why for Life at Lutherans for Life, where we prepare youth to be gospel-motivated voices for life. Be sure to stick around after today's live recording of our Chats for Life program to find out how you can be live too on our next Youth for Life podcast. Hello and welcome to this episode of Youth for Life, the Youth for Life podcast. We're taking a look at vocations and how God upholds life through our individual vocations. Tonight or today, whenever you're listening, we're going to take a look at farmers and how does God uphold life through the agricultural industry. Before I introduce you to my very wonderful guests, we're going to go ahead and open with prayer. So if you'll please pray with me. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank and praise you for this day. We thank you for the opportunity to gather together to talk about the ways that you work through individuals to uphold lives. We thank you, Lord, for farmers, for the gifts that they bring to the world, to the gifts they bring to our nation, to our communities, and in particular to our families. Lord, be with us during this presentation, during this recording of the episode, and help the truths that you want shared to come forward. In all things we ask, in Jesus' name, amen. All right, so I have four guests with me this evening, four wonderful farmers. I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves and to tell us about their role in the agricultural industry, right? And then how long they've been doing that. So according to my screen, the number one square on my screen is Mr. Phil Burbrink. We'll just call him Phil. But if you want to introduce yourself, that would be great, and tell us a little bit more about how you are engaged as a farmer.
Yeah, my name is Phil Burbrink. I've been farming for about 13 years now. Before that, I was doing engineering work full-time until I transitioned over into farming. We mainly do row crops. So we have corn, soybeans, and some wheat every once in a while. But that's our mainstay, is that just raising crops and watching the market.
Yeah. Okay, so corn, soybeans, and wheat. Let's hear from Brian.
I am Brian Arnholt. I am a farmer as well. I grew up, my dad's farmed his whole life, so I've been around it my whole life. I've ventured into other businesses at times and always find that I miss the farming. So I have been back at our farm for 30 years now and without a break other than a vacation. So it's just, farming's not really a job. I'm guessing everyone on here will agree. It's just a way of life. You can't leave it. And much like Phil, we grow corn and soybeans, and we grow specialty food grade corn. We grow seed corn, seed beans. So a few extra things. We've tried growing pickles and cucumbers and green beans, and we've found that we're sticking to the basics of corn and soybeans, and we just try to do that well.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned generational farmers, and really your dad did it and Phil's dad did it, and I know Libby's dad did it, and Dalton's dad, I'm guessing, did it as well, right? Yeah. So that there seems to be a pattern here, right? Libby and Dalton, tell us about how you contribute to the farming industry.
Yeah, so I guess our story is kind of very similar to Phil and Brian. So I grew up in a family operation as well. Corn, beans were our main staples too, row crop operation. So grew up in it, went to college at Purdue and majored in it as well. So majored in ag business with a sales and marketing concentration. Thought I wanted to go be in a big corporation for agriculture. I learned that I actually really wanted to come back home, even though it's a little bit harder. And you're definitely in it every single day in the thick of it. But I really enjoy being at home, being able to work with my family, and really learn what agriculture is all about.
So Dalton Workman, I'm kind of a little bit of a different spin. So we didn't really do row crops at home. We were more on the ag side as far as in the livestock. And so we did a lot of like show animals, commercial cattle. We actually did sheep for a little while, and that didn't work out. So we got out of that, mainly cattle and pigs. So always been around farming a lot. A lot of the customers I worked with actually did row crops, so I always help them on my off time. Always interested in this side of agronomy and things of that nature, and that's actually what I do today. So pay attention to like inputs and help guys kind of work through that, and it's fun. I don't necessarily work any day out there. We always say we enjoy what we do, and it seems like we never work. So
Yeah. Okay. So you use some language that that just went over my head, right? As a non-farm girl. So what do you mean when you're talking about do input and those sort of things? Can you explain it for city folk?
yeah, so on the side of ours, like we work with like fertilizers, so we'll do like liquid fertilizers. There's dry fertilizers guys will use for row crops, especially crops. I know Brian talked about cucumbers. We got some customers that do those now. But basically like any chemistries that guys have weeds they're killing off. Some of the crops have traits to where they are resistant to it, so it doesn't necessarily kill the crop, but it kills the weed. So that way we have clean crops when we go to harvest. It helps prevent damage and machinery and things like that. So yeah, it's just different types of liquid substances, and then there's retailers and big chains and stuff. So
Yeah.
lots of different fertilizers.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, thank you very much for explaining that. And you're still involved with some livestock, right, Dalton?
Yep. We still got show pigs. Don't know if we really still need them, but we
That's
do
our
have-
hobby together. So yeah, we enjoy doing that together.
Yeah, the hobby.
All right. So we've got some background. We know basically all of you grew up in a farming family or a family connected to agriculture in some way. So tell me, and Libby kind of mentioned this. She actually went to school to become a farmer, and we know, I know Phil did some engineering, those sort of things. What made you interested in farming? What is it about farming that keeps you connected?
I just love the variety. One of the questions you said you wanted to ask is describe a day in the life of a farmer. Like,
Yeah.
well, pick a week, pick a season. I mean, there's so much variety. Today I sat in the office all day working on what am I going to buy from Dalton on the input side and selling grain and watching the grain markets. And in April, I'll get up at 5 a.m. and I'll get in a tractor and I'll stay in the tractor planting until my field's done or I, can't stay awake anymore. And in summer, where you're getting, I mean, there's so much variety. There's so many different things that we do. And probably my greatest satisfaction is when we've been working in the field in the spring planting and you get a rain day and you get to go back and see those little corn plants coming up out of the ground. And that's just pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, and then you take that to the end of the season and you get to see the combine and bring in your bounty and there's just a lot of joy in that.
Yeah. What keeps you in it, Phil? I mean, you could be an engineer, right? And get a pay raise every year and all those sorts of things.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things about farming now that have changed from where it was when I was a kid. Because growing up on the farm, it was just about, farming 30 years ago was a lot different than it is now. And you can look at the technology that's on a tractor. There's a lot of engineering that has really adopted into farming. The technology you use as far as the varieties that you're going to plant in the field, and even your planters will go out and they'll change the population as you go through the field. You didn't used to do that. You usually always had to go out and manually change the sprockets and get greasy hands. But I mean, now you can go ahead and you can write a prescription for a field and you can assign what crop goes where and what the population is. There's an engineering aspect to it. I love the planning of the farming season, and I love to go out and have everything fall into place. I've got Excel sheets on everything. So, I mean, as far as I feel like I've brought engineering into the our family's farm. So I've really enjoyed that, having an engineering background and then tying that in with what we're doing on the farm now. I really like that. But I'm with Brian when it comes to going out there and you've put in all the work, and then you come back 7 days later and you see that little sprout. That's when I'm on my knees praying to God, and you just feel that, that seed is, I can put it in the ground, but the magic that happens, the miracle that happens when that thing breaks through the ground, it just touches me every year. I love it.
Yeah, you really get a chance, an up close picture of God at work, right? With the growing of crops, and really much of your work is weather dependent, right? Whether you get into the fields or not, that's weather dependent, but also how it grows, when it grows, does it grow, right? Does it get flooded out or burnt to a crisp, or those sorts of things, right? Certainly a lot of risk there. So, what about you, Libby and Dalton? What keeps you in farming? What does an average day look like for you guys?
Yeah, I would say a lot of what Phil and Brian have said. There is a lot of variety in farming. No 2 days are the same. Even in the same season, there's different fields that bring forth different challenges and different, I guess, good things and positives too. So each day does look different, but I think one thing that really draws me to agriculture is the passion. It's just so unique to hear. Each farm story is so different too. We've learned that through doing business with other farmers and also just being in conversation. Like, for example, last week, Dalton went out to Texas for a big conference, San Antonio, and he was just talking to the Uber driver on the way back to the airport. And he's like, man, these farmers are just so passionate about what they do. And they're really great people. And I truly do believe that the group of agriculturalists they're so passionate. They love what they do and they talk about it 24/7. But like I said, it's just such a joy to be a part and to continue to learn as a young individual. I don't think I'm ever going to know it all. And I think that Brian and Phil would also reiterate that you're always learning too, which is such a joy.
So I guess the piece that is every day. Well, we get up. It's a new set of challenges. That's what's kind of intriguing to me. You could wake up one day and you could be a businessman, you could be a welder, you could be a plumber, and then you're starting to crop out. Go in the fields piece. You got precision, technology on all the planters and stuff, just to put this little seed in the ground and let it germinate, and then it's off to the races. And then it's influenced by Mother Nature, what the good Lord provides us. And it's unique kind of to see, like a couple of years ago when the fires happened in Canada, we had a lot of smoke. And so, sunlight is a big issue for a crop to grow. And how we pulled through with such a large crop of the US was really unique. So I don't know, it's really intriguing every day to kind of see, how stuff comes together. This year was a really bad planting season our past year, and we still had, I feel like, a pretty good crop overall. Some of us maybe didn't, some did, but anyhow, overall it was pretty good. So it's just very unique to see it and out. It's really heart touching. It really is Mother Nature and what the good Lord provides us. So it's a lot of work that you can't get elsewhere.
I think it's interesting when you guys are talking about all the different things, right? You mentioned you can be a plumber and a welder, and you can be an engineer, and you can be, and it is true. Farmers, if something goes wrong, right, you're first on the scene and trying to fix it. The average day, does it look different? Do you get up a lot earlier during certain parts of the year and not quite as early during others? I mean, if somebody said, I want to grow up and be a farmer, what would you say they should be ready for?
Long hours and a lot of rewards.
Yeah.
Uh, you have to work hard, but at the end of the day, that hard work and long hours, there's so many different ways that reward you. And kind of to Libby's point earlier, the community in agriculture is there's a passion for it, and people come together. When you're with a group of farmers, you know it because I can't even explain it. It's just they're there to help you. They're
Mhm.
they're there to help you learn. And I know in our area, which is where I live, I can speak for that people are willing to pitch in and help out, and it's really amazing. And I don't have stock that I'm trading and people trying to undercut me on that. So maybe that's the difference. I don't know, but I do think agricultural industry is pretty unique in several ways, and that is one of them for sure.
Yeah, I think one of the ways farming is unique as well is that direct connection to upholding life, right? When we talk about life issues, very often we talk about, beginning of life or end of life issues, but there are some very basic needs for life, and farmers supply some of those needs. How would you describe the unique qualities of a farmer in a way that shows that they uphold life? Like, how does the work you do benefit and serve others? How does the work you do uphold the lives of many? You want to jump in on that, Phil?
I think listeners have to think about the fact that, farming isn't just raising a crop, because there are so many things that it takes to get that crop in the ground. I mean, for example, like some people just think we go out and we plant and we harvest. But what you don't realize is that a farmer, that harvest or that planting season, like the seed that I'm getting ready to plant in April, I was purchasing back in August of last year. So you start like a year before, you ever even plant that seed in the ground, and then after you've planted and harvested, you've still got that harvest sitting in the bin for the next year. So there's actually like every season goes over like a 3-year period, and over that 3-year period, you're buying fuel. So you're supporting people that sell fuel. You're buying fertilizer. You're supplying grain that's going to go to food. I mean, there's such an economic wheel here that turns around farming. It's not just farmers in a field, it's everybody that supports the farm, and then everybody that we touch when the grain comes out of the field too. So, I mean, it's substantial how much, you may not think about, the fact that, you're not really in farming, but if your dad supplies fuel to somebody, I mean, they're most likely supplying fuel to a farmer or somebody. I mean, it's a huge economic wheel. And when I think about the day to day, like Brian was talking about, I always mess around with this word called persistence, because some people say like you have to be patient to be a farmer, and I'm like, no, you have to be persistent to be a farmer, because patience means you're waiting for something to be over. Persistence means it's never going to end. I mean, it's constantly going, and you can be in the middle of one year, but you're dealing with harvest from last year and the seed sales from the next year and the planting that you're doing right now. I mean, there is a constant persistence that you have to have every day. Every day is a different challenge, and you have to look at each day as a new opportunity to show that you're not going to fall apart, but you're going to keep things going. I was thinking about this when we were talking about the questions, and there's a verse in the Bible, and this is like my favorite and my least favorite in the Bible. So it's from Genesis. And you guys probably know this because whenever pastor reads it in church, I always cringe. But it's like, cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil, you will eat of it all your days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles for you, and you will eat the plants of your field. But by the sweat of your brow, you will eat your food until you return to the ground, since from it you were taken, for dust you are, and dust you will return. So, I mean, when I hear that, it's like, man, that sounds awful. I mean, this is what sin was laid upon a farmer. And if you don't have the persistence to deal with that every day, and I mean, if you don't feel like God's presence and that that you're overcoming sin by all the obstacles that are laid in front of you. I mean, that's what farming is. It's the persistence to know that God is with you, but you're dealing with a sin in your life, and And how are you going to manage that? That's what, when I think about everyday farming and the people that we touch, I mean, even the listeners have to think about, you have sin in your life. Are you going to show the persistence to, measure up? Are you going to meet this and say, God, I know what's right. I know what's wrong. Let me do the right thing and overcome the sin. Let me be persistent every day. Don't be patient, be persistent, because sin never stops.
Mhm.
That's my mini sermon.
Based on Genesis 3,
Yeah.
the curse. That's right. And it is true. When you look at in Genesis, what are the first jobs, right? What are Adam and Eve meant to do? What do Cain and Abel do? They're farming and they're tending flocks. They're tending herds of animals, right? Caring for the gifts that God has given us so that those gifts can provide for life, right? Dalton, what about you? Like you have maybe a different perspective, right? You didn't work with crops growing up. You worked with animals, with livestock. How does it look different?
The one thing that I always notice is like being an ag is definitely a community, which also ties to like some of the conversation here for row crops. Like it makes such a unique difference in people's lives. Like you can tell someone's come out of the ag industry versus not, as far as like their mentalities, where they're conservative, things like that. But as far as the impact of life, like I feel like it teaches young kids. I say kids. I feel like I'm still a kid, but anyway, young kids. So many like things. Like you learn how to talk to people. I feel like that's something that I see nowadays. Like there's a lot of kids that don't necessarily they can talk, but they can't go up and have a full conversation. The responsibility part about back to persistency, like doing something a chore every single day in ag, you're used to doing that. Elsewhere, I'm not hitting anything, but like I feel like you can kind of see like someone that is persistent versus non-persistent. So those are things that I really noticed. Libby mentioned I went to a conference last week and we were having a conversation on the plane on the way down and just about how the ag market right now is, the grain market's not the best and how it's kind of affecting everything. And kind of back to what Phil said earlier, like it is something how much it feeds the economy. Just like the phone that we're on right now, like most farms have iPads, they have phones, that fuel sells to Apple or Samsung, wherever you're buying from. All the pins, paperwork, I mean, all that stuff is purchased. So it's just so unique to me to go out and see how many places, like you go to a conference like last week, there's people that know nothing about, shouldn't say nothing about farming, but they're integrated into a piece of software now that helps farmers, and so they're there.
Yeah. Are there choices that a farmer makes? And you guys have done a very good job of connecting farming to other industries, right? And the way that it upholds us economically, not just food wise, right? I mean, uh, if I remember my statistics correctly, if I remember, I read somewhere that the amount of corn and grain that America makes in the Midwest could feed the world. Is that true? Have you heard some of those same statistics?
I have not heard that.
Maybe
Not
I'm
saying
totally
that's
making it
false,
up.
but we grow a lot of corn in the US, but
Yeah,
we export a fair amount, but there's a lot grown in Europe and in South America as well. So,
yeah,
and China is actually one of the largest producers of corn themselves. So
sure.
I
Well,
I, I can't vouch for that statement.
sure. Well, whether or not America is the largest breadbasket, right?
I'll
Um,
agree with that.
You would agree. Okay, there you go. Um, are there decisions, obviously you've been talking about how farmers can uphold life and how they uphold industry and economy and families because the economy is upheld. Moms and dads have jobs and can feed their children. Are there choices that a farmer makes or maybe practices that he or she engages in that maybe purposely uphold life or could place life in danger, right? What are some of the things that you have to to weigh when you make choices as a farmer?
I think there's like the inputs that you use, like you could plant non-GMO soybeans, which is non-genetically modified, or you can plant GMO soybeans. So, I mean, some of them take lesser chemicals, so there's less chance of, any contamination going through food. So, and then some are more genetically modified. So, I mean, there's some choices you could make there, and like some tofu grade soybean, you would want non-GMO soybeans. So, I mean, we've meddled with that a little bit in the past. So, I mean, there's choices you can make there. There's also, I think, when you say physical, I think more like, what practices are you making to make sure things are safe?
Right.
There's
Yeah.
things on the farm, like um, sometimes you hear of farm accidents. In my family, I look back through the family tree and I can find multiple tractor accidents that have claimed people in the life of our family. So, I mean, it's like, how are you making sure that you're, taking a Mavericks minute and just looking around and make sure that you're not missing something that's going to change somebody's life forever? And I mean, um, I've been injured on the farm. I mean, I know that, after an injury, you are like hypersensitive about everything around you and making sure that everything is safe. Color coding chemicals to make sure that you're using the right chemicals on the farm. I mean, there's lots of different things you can do to try to make things are safe for people on the farm and even off the farm.
That's interesting. I didn't know about the color coding chemicals. That's a
And it's just something I do because it's like I like to know that like I've got stickers on the herbicides or the fungicides I'm going to use. That way, when I go in there and I'm trying to sort through stuff, I don't have to read every chemical, that I've got there. I already pre-labeled stuff. So I just like to make sure things are clean and neat as much as I can.
Just kind of to Phil's point, I think that is a great point on, being good stewards. And I think that one way that we do that as farmers as well is when an EPA regulation is put out, like we try to follow that as best as we can. There's certain dates for certain chemistry because the weather is hot or too cold. And so being respectful of those, it just shows that we are being good stewards of not only the ground, but also the environment. And so there is regulations that are put around the certain chemistries if you choose to use those on your operation. And so just making sure that all farmers and we hold one another accountable to follow those rules, I think is a big part of agriculture too.
Yeah, and that's another point that I think probably the average listener doesn't know about, right?
Yep.
That there would be rules that you guys would have to follow, that
Right.
the average citizen doesn't, right? Especially
Yep.
with chemicals. So,
Perfect.
and that leads really into that next question that we have then, and that is, how is caring for God's creation then life affirming for humans? When you guys follow those EPA rules, when you're careful about what you're putting on the ground or what you're growing or those sorts of things. How is that life affirming for humans?
Kind of back to what Phil was saying about the non-GMOs
Mhm.
and GMO products. I think it was 1996 when the first GM genetically modified corn plant came to be. And those were all developed to actually reduce the inputs and reduce the amount of herbicides, reduce the amounts of fertilizers we need so that we can feed the world. And if you look back through production history, those things all attribute to greater yield so that we can feed more people from 1 acre. So there is a lot of non-GMO food grade type things like the tofu, and we actually grow a lot of non-GMO corn ourselves. But we also depend on those things so we can feed more people because we not only do we feed people, but we clothe people and we provide fuel with ethanol. I mean, there's so many other avenues, and all of those things kind of come together with the inputs and things to produce more per acre because we don't get more land. Indiana loses 300,000 acres of farmland every year to urban development. So We
Mm.
have to continue to find ways to feed the people, fuel and clothe the people, which we don't really clothe in Indiana. That's from the South with the cotton growers.
Hmm.
Um, but it is nice that we do have those options to grow non-GMO things to provide for those people who choose to live like that as well. So I'm not trying to say one's right or wrong. I
Hmm.
think we need both options out there.
Yeah, I think even you mentioning the ethanol, that's another interesting avenue too, right? Can you explain that process or just maybe very, very quickly for those maybe who don't know how ethanol is made?
Yeah,
Um,
so most of the ethanol in the US is made from corn, the grain itself. I'm not a scientist. Phil might be able to tell us the process better. I mean, the ethanol, it's alcohol that's extracted from the fermentation of corn, and almost every gallon of gasoline in the US has some percentage of ethanol in it, which the intent of that is to reduce carbon emissions from gasoline.
right.
Um, so just trying to help the environment in that regard. And did that answer your question, Michelle? Because
Yeah.
I had a couple other
Yeah.
points
No,
that Libby made me think of.
I know. I think that that's just another avenue that we don't often attribute to farming as making something better, right? And yet, in many ways, it has. It's reached into new ways to uphold life and preserve, the creation that God has given us, right? God has given us a mind to be um, creative in how we use the gifts He's given us, and that's another really good one. So yeah.
Another thing with the ethanol is after they've extracted the alcohol from the corn, then they get DDGs, dried distillers grain, which is then fed back to animals. So that entire kernel of corn has purpose to it in one way or another. Yeah.
Interesting.
Also at food plants where they're processing corn for food, they'll extract the starch or the corn sugar they're trying to get out of there, and what's left over goes to animal feed. So it's all used in some fashion.
Yeah. You've mentioned a few times about the farming community. You've talked a little bit about the farming community and how strong and supportive it is, right? Can you share an instance, and maybe it involves the community, maybe it doesn't, maybe it's just your own family, but can you share an instance when God allowed you to experience a difficult life issue while farming, and then how He transformed it for good?
Do you
Like,
have a specific difficult time you'd like me
yeah,
to talk about,
yeah.
Michelle?
I think Brian, you've got a really good story. So we'll have you go first, but yeah, I'd love to hear from all of you. So go for it.
So almost a year ago, it was March 19th. Our farm was hit by a tornado, an EF2, and it pretty much destroyed our farm. It took out our grain system, all of our structures, pretty much everything. And there's so many blessings that came from that. That happened on a Wednesday night, and that Friday and Saturday, our neighbors and friends from everywhere, there was over 100 people at our farm helping clean up, picking up debris from neighboring fields where buildings were scattered, people bringing food, people bringing beverages. There aren't words to describe my gratitude. Some of those people I didn't even know. They
Hmm.
just had seen it on the news or something and had found us. But just that community, most of them I knew, most of them were farmers, not all of them, but they came together, they brought their talents and their toys of excavators and skid loaders. They helped us when we were in need. And that kept my spirits so high to where I can't even count the blessings from it.
Hmm.
It would have been really easy to get down and devastated, and not one time did I ever feel that way. Your husband was on vacation
Yeah.
and called me when he got home and said, Brian, I really would like to come see you. I know you're going through difficult times. And I told him, Pastor, I don't need you right now. Why don't you go tend to someone who does? Because I've got so many great things going on right now. I felt like I was living on top of the world
Yeah.
because of the community outreach that we had.
Yeah.
Libby's grandma sent me a pan of her famous cinnamon roll.
Man, you scored.
Yeah, so
Life is good.
and and we're almost completely rebuilt now, less than a year later. And I mean, I praise God every day for the people He's given in my life and in my family's lives to make that possible because I I have no other explanation of why so many people pitched in or why we were able to get rebuilt so quickly. Why were the grain bin manufacturers available to provide the equipment we needed? Why were the contractors of it? I mean, I could go on and on.
Hmm. Yeah. Just
And
to
no one
watch
was
that.
injured.
Right. Right. No one
I
was
mean,
injured.
there were people that lost their homes. I'm thankful we did not. I feel awful for those folks, and I wish I could have done more to help them, but it really is just a testament to our community locally as well as the farming community to just back to Phil, the grain bin manufacturers in that community and the contractors, all those different people touched the farming community and they all pitched in some way or another.
Yeah. It's been a just miraculous thing to see, right? How God turned something really, really horrible, right? Could have been career ending, and instead, He has brought forth the people to uphold your lives, your family's life, and so that you can continue to uphold the lives of others, right? So that you can continue to farm and produce the things that others need. Very thankful for that. Libby and Dalton or Phil, you have something
I
you want
can't
to?
touch that because I mean
Right.
you're looking at what just happened to us. I mean,
Right.
because we were fortunate because the same tornado went between my house and my dad's house where the farm is, and it went through our field, took out a shed, and then jumped the river and went to Brian's house. I mean, it's just it was a path,
Mhm.
and I don't know how. I mean, it's just one of those things where you just you're lucky that no one was hurt in your family, and you pray that everybody that was in contact with that was safe, and then you had to look at all the physical stuff and then try to pitch in where you could to help out. And everybody was, I mean, we didn't even have that much damage, just the shed that was gone. But I mean, people would call us and be like, hey, are you guys okay? Do you need any help? And we're like, we're okay. There's other people that need more help than we do. So I mean, and there's always things that happen in the news too. I mean, there's little kids that get hurt on the farm and families that come in. I know that when I was in college, in high school, um, there was a boy. His dad died, and so the boy was left to get the crops in, and all the farmers showed up and helped this kid get all the crops out that year. I mean, it was one of those things where it's like it's the same thing. It's a community. It's helping each other because we have to be persistent every day.
I think it's a beautiful picture of the church, a beautiful picture of the way that God's family is supposed to work together, right? Supposed to uphold each other's lives and to give aid when aid is needed, right? So often, as I work with young people, they're making career plans and wondering what they'll do in their lives, and this is good. It is good to wonder how you can serve others best, but sometimes it means being served as well, right? And I think the farming community, uh, you know, I, I think it does that very well, and certainly not only giving, but also recognizing when it's time to receive. And that's hard, right? It is hard to be the receiver, and to say, "Man, I couldn't do this on my own." But I think when you're dealing with things, forces of nature, you really can't do it on your own. right? And this is when you realize you need God's people. You need the community, you need the people that he's placed in your lives. So,
Michelle, you mentioned there that we're at nature, and God's weather
yeah,
can be devastating. As farmers, we rely on his weather to be favorable every
right.
single day. It's not something new or that we only deal with in devastating events or natural disasters. It's something that we rely on for our livelihoods. And I'm kind of a control freak.
I think most people are.
And the weather is just something you have no control over no matter what. And when you're trying to make a living and a life from that, you learn how to deal with that adversity, I think.
Any thoughts, Libby or Dalton?
I think those stories really sum it up. I'm sure I'll have some in the future to share too, but I'm young and coming back into it. We've been very fortunate on our farm to everyone stayed safe each season, and what a blessing that is. We certainly say that at the end of every season. Each season has its challenges, but to end a season, that's truly something to be grateful for, and it's something to pray over at the beginning of every season as well, that everyone stays safe, because it's very easy for accidents to happen.
Yeah. That leads us into the next question, which is, what is the best way for friends, for family, for community members to uphold farmers, the lives of farmers?
I thought about this question long and hard, and it's something that I am passionate about. Like I said earlier, there's lots of ways that young people can get educated in agriculture, whether that's 4-H and FFA. And you participate in FFA when you're in high school. For those who are unaware of what that organization is, and I did a public speaking contest one year, and I talked about mental health and farmers. And it's something I'm very passionate about because it's often overlooked. It's often not talked about, and I think. I guess there's maybe less of a stigma now, that mental health has become more of a conversation, especially in young people, but it's a really big deal in agriculture. Especially you think about the environment that we're in right now. Farmers are isolated a lot by themselves. There's a lot of economic stress and pressure with the markets the way they are. We are in a down market in agriculture right now, which means, our commodities aren't worth maybe what we should be getting for them. And so all of those things can really cause a lot of mental stress on farmers. And so being aware of that as a community, just checking in on your farmers, helping them find resources to get the mental health help that they need, so they can have mental clarity going into their work, because the work is so challenging in itself. So I would say that's the biggest way, in my opinion, that you can uphold a farmer, is just to show them that support, and just genuinely ask how they're doing.
That's good. Yeah, I didn't even think about the isolation part, but that's certainly, it's a theme that's running through the youth I serve. It's a theme that's running everywhere. But like physically, there is a lot of isolation when you're the only
That's
one
right.
in the tractor, right? What else can be done?
Michelle, one thing, this is going to sound really silly, but one thing that always makes me feel good and puts a smile on my face, and is one way that anyone driving on the road can be supportive of a farmer, is when you see a tractor and an implement coming down the road, pull over and wave.
Sure.
Because a lot of this equipment is huge and it's hard to get off of the road. And I literally get so much joy out of someone pulling over and having a smile on their face and waving at me. That means more to me than anything, rather than me have to worry about where am I going to go, how are we going to meet. And
Sure.
I know that sounds silly, but it really does mean a lot.
No,
And
it does.
Brian, oh,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you get bonus points if you're listening, if you pull in a driveway, and the tractor and implement get the whole road. I'm just saying, you get bonus points. So we will really thank you then.
Good point, Libby.
I thought I was going to be the one that said that, and I was going to feel so bad that that's something that, because that's the one time where we are in a public situation, because
Mhm.
typically we are in the field most of the time. And we don't really want to be on that road any more than the people want us to be on the road. I mean, so really, it's like we're not trying to force you off the road. We're just trying to get from field A to field B. And just please be patient with us while we're trying to do with it. Because you can be patient. We're being persistent. I'm going to get annoying. But anyway, it's amazing to hear all of you guys echoing the same thing. Because I was like, what can people do? It's like, get off the road. And I'm with you, Libby. I mean, if they pull in the driveway, I mean, it's like hallelujah. I mean, just let me go. Because once I get that thing going down the road, I do not want to have to idle down and pull over.
Right.
It's crazy. You wouldn't think that'd be that big of a deal, but all three of us said the same thing.
Yeah.
But if
I
they,
am not a farmer, but I can tell you that for the number of pieces of equipment I saw on Highway 31 when I used to drive down and back to the school, I can imagine how frustrating that would be, right? To just have cars zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, and not a whole lot of room to
yeah,
move forward. So, yeah.
Also, be patient. I mean, like I said that once, but I mean, realize you got to be smart around a piece of equipment too. Sometimes people are very assertive when they come up on a piece of equipment, and I've seen them make some serious mistakes as far as, just try to be safe and try to keep your head about you when you're getting around a piece of equipment, because we may not be able to see all avenues of the traffic around us. So, I mean, just, be cautious when you're around a piece of equipment, and please be patient.
Yeah, be patient and not persistent in that instance.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Now that we're on roads, how do you guys do the circle thing, right? I mean, like, do you just go right over the middle of it, right? There's no way you can. I mean,
Oh, a
given
roundabout. Yeah.
those traffic circles and roundabouts, there's no way
Oh,
you guys can do that, can you?
yeah, well, you can get around that.
Really?
it
You just
Yeah.
depends
drive
on how
over it,
big they
right?
are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I,
sometimes you're up on the curbs, and there's a couple in Columbus that I just have to go right through the middle of, but most of them
yeah.
we're okay.
Yeah. I can't. Yeah. Every time I see those roundabouts and then I see like big semi trucks coming, I'm thinking, "Wow, how do they do that?" So interesting. If you could pinpoint one life issue in the agricultural field that you think we should keep an eye on, and I already know what Libby's is going to be, maybe because it's new or growing quickly, but you know that it's affecting farmers, what would it be? Libby
Well,
mentioned mental health already.
yeah, Libby already kind of took my point on that. I guess I'll reiterate that it is mental health is a challenge in the farming community, and Libby did an excellent job describing that, so I won't try it again, but it is a problem.
And Brian, to your point, I think just talking about it too, when you think it is a predominantly male field, right? I think that more women are getting more and more involved in it, but sometimes I think that men are a little bit shy to talk about their emotions, and sometimes how it makes you feel. And so I think it is really important just to understand, some of the challenges that we go through and to actually talk about them and how they affect our minds on a daily basis, I think is important just to reduce some of that stigma as well.
And would you say that it's the same for, farmers who are growing crops? Would it be the same for those that are raising cattle or dairy farmers or
Sure.
pig farmers, those sort of things? I mean, are there different concerns?
What I think for livestock, for me, would be even more stressful than
Mhm.
row crops, in
I
my
agree.
opinion. Because with livestock, I mean, because when I was growing up on the farm, we had cows and pigs, and mom hated it because we never went on vacation. Because I mean, we were constantly, I mean, you couldn't just go walk away from the pigs because I mean, somebody had to feed them. I mean, there was a care aspect that, so mentally you're always thinking about those, where like our heaviest things for row crops is the planting season and the harvest season, and then everything around it. But I mean, I would think livestock would be even more pressure on a farmer.
Are there ways to uphold farmers with livestock that people could help with? Is there any app that says, "Hey, I need somebody to milk the cows tonight. Is there a volunteer?" Right? I mean, like, why don't we have something like that? I know my husband's got an uncle that's a dairy farmer, and yeah, same. I mean, like they can't leave. They've got to have someone there twice a day to milk the cows, right? But what are some ways we could uphold the lives of those that are doing the hard work of raising the cattle and the pigs and the sheep so that people can eat, right?
I think the biggest thing is just understanding and educating yourself truly on what it takes. Like when you live in maybe an urban community, just knowing that animals usually have to be fed once or twice a day, and like the time it takes. And when you see a farmer, or you go maybe buy a gallon of milk from the store, that you maybe think about those things and how it truly got there, and just to show that gratitude. Rather than, I know sometimes it's easy, some of these organizations, they attack farmers, and it is really challenging, and maybe I see some of their concerns. But I do truly believe that farmers are trying to do the best that with what they have, and they aren't trying to be harsh. I know sometimes that some of these organizations can portray farmers that way, and I genuinely think a lot of farmers are genuinely trying to do their best that they can. So that would be my 2 cents on that.
I'll follow up a little bit with Libby. I mean, I hear a lot about how farmers are polluting and over fertilizing and all that, and farmers kind of get a bad rap for some of these things. And farmers don't want to spend more growing an acre of crops than they have to. So if we're applying fertilizer, it's generally because the crops need it. And also you have parks and lawn care and golf courses and many other things that also apply these fertilizer products that end up in the water stream and things like that. So there are I feel like farmers take a lot of heat for some things that aren't completely at our control. And most farmers I know are good stewards and do a lot of no-till farming to prevent soil erosion, and are spoon feeding liquid fertilizers to the crops a couple times throughout the year, so we're not putting one big thing out at one time. And Phil made the point earlier about technology. With GPS technology and being able to variable rate basically every input we put on a field, we can place those things where we need them and where we get the return for them. And I do think most farmers are very good stewards with the gifts God's given us, and we do want to care for it and don't want to be wasteful using things that aren't needed.
Yeah, that's good. I have one final question for all of you, and that is if there's one book or podcast or maybe an article that you think we should read to learn more, or listen to learn more about farming and the life issues that maybe farmers are connected with, or the ways they get to uphold life, what would you recommend?
Well, as far as books go, I haven't read a book yet, so I don't know of any good books. Um, there's one publication that I like. It's called Successful Farming.
Hmm.
It's a magazine, and they have a good website. That would be a good way for someone who's not into farming to just get on their website and read an article or two, and you kind of catch up on what current events are, or what maybe are some trends, things like that. But as far as books, I don't like to read them, so I don't know of any.
You're breaking my heart, Brian.
Yes, that is not music to Mrs. Bauman's ears. I guess to that point, there's a podcast that I like to listen to every now and again. He brings on guest speakers from all different facets of agriculture. It's the Business of Agriculture podcast by Damian Mason. There's probably some controversial things on there. And, he's a farmer too. So some of his language sometimes is a little much. But I do think he has some really valid points, and he brings some really educated people onto his podcast that talk about the markets, economics, inputs, things like that. So I think that's a good podcast to listen to every once in a while.
How about you, Dalton?
I was going to say Damian Mason too. He's got a pretty good podcast right now. I actually just saw him last week, and he brings in a lot of just like the Iran issue there over the weekend. Like he's gonna probably have a podcast maybe tomorrow on our nitrogen issues that we're having right now. That's something how differences in the world. Like now we got a shortage, we can't even get UAN, which nitrogen for our corn. So it's a good podcast. Kind of learn what's the trends going on. A month ago there was an issue somewhere, I don't remember where it was, and it really shoved the price of a specific chemistry up because that's where it was made at. So it's just kind of unique to hear that stuff. Obviously the grain market, everybody has their ear peeled to the speaker when they start talking about that. But no, that's a good one. I know it's not real professional, but I feel like there's some educational TikToks out there too anymore.
Sure.
There's some bad ones too, so you got to weed through them. But yeah, no, I think there's a lot of areas that people are trying to educate in ag actually on media. So
I think a lot of your hybrid seed sales too. I mean, I know Bex is one we buy a lot of our stuff from, and Bex is really good about doing a lot of research and educating the farmer on the best ways to use different practices on the farm. So, I mean, I really lean hard on them for a lot of the information that they push out each year and different practices that they're trying. So it's not a book, and they have multiple podcasts too on different topics. So, I mean, that would probably be what I would recommend.
Bex
And
has
then
a
if you want,
podcast. Bex has a podcast.
I think
they have they did a YouTube and a podcast that they put out. Ag does one too. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And then I think if everybody wanted to do a fun book, it's a big read, but Brandon Sanderson has a book out called The Way of Kings, and it's a sci-fi book. So it's all like swords and shields and stuff. But anyway, it really has a good message about, making it through the struggles of life and having a perseverance over those challenges. And really, you can have really bad things happen in your life, and how you kind of meet yourself through all those different challenges. So, it's a little bit of a corny book, but I really enjoy that book. If I had to recommend any book to somebody, that it's a fun read, but it's a thick book.
Yeah, Brian Sanderson is a great author. He's not.
That's good. Okay. I'm surprised you know who he is, so I'm impressed.
Of course, sci-fi, fantasy, yeah. He's a pretty big name there. So, Brian, you'll have to read it.
I'll probably not read it.
In between rows, Brian. In between rows on those long stretches, of course.
That's when I get on TikTok.
Yeah. Really get educated.
They probably have a short version there. No, you could get it on Audible. Listen to it.
There you go.
There you go. It could read to you. So
okay,
that's right.
No, I might be able to do that.
There you go. I'll show you at church how to set it up. So.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for joining me for the podcast, for talking about farming. I learned a lot. I'm hoping our listeners learned a lot, but also thank you for being active in upholding the lives of not only the people in our community and each other, but across the nation and across the world. So thanks for joining me. And for those of you who are listening, we'd love it if you like and share the podcast. Please tell us what you want to hear about, and we'll try to invite that individual or cover that topic. May God bless your week and your work for life. Thanks for joining us for today's life topic. Check out whyforlife.org or email Michelle at whyforlife.org to find out how and when you can go live with us at our next Chats for Life session. Or join us next time, right here at Why for Life Podcasts, where youth learn how to be gospel-motivated voices for life.